I call COVID-19 her because it's an expression of the feminine energy of nature in all her power to awaken us. So we dare not for a moment demonize and think COVID-19, a form of coronavirus, is a diabolical, demoniacal sort of aspect of this pandemic. Let us steer away from that. Because the moment we do that, the moment we start eliciting the fear response to COVID, we're not going to be doing very well for ourselves. We're doing a disservice to our physiology. And of course, it starts with our thoughts, the panic. The COVID pandemic is a pandemic of deep worry, constant worry, and panic, silent panic. And this is what I found in practice, which makes all the difference whether a person who's contracted COVID virus lands up with ARDS, acute respiratory distress syndrome, which is the full-blown manifestation of a suppressed immune system where you are needing an intensive care unit in a hospital setting, where the lungs are inflamed, where the interstitial tissue of the lungs, the lymphatics of the lungs are congested and stagnated, where the alveoli are congested and inflamed, and the blood vessels of the lungs are experiencing emboli or thrombosis. So that's the full-blown picture. And that's about under 3% of patients. Even though the incidence of death is under 3%, just about 2.8 in this country, it's high. But if we shift our attention to those who have survived, those who have survived are those who had, majority, a mild flu-like illness. Some of them had a mild pneumonia. Some had a severe pneumonia and didn't need any hospital intervention. But of course, the most severest form of this illness, indirectly caused by COVID, but not directly caused by COVID. This is a very important distinction. COVID virus per se does not cause, is not is not known to cause directly the lung problem, inflammation of the heart, inflammation of the lung, and some cases inflammation of the brain tissue, and of course the kidney as well. The multi-system, multi-pronged, multi-system disease. COVID virus is not the direct cause. It is the individual's immune system which is highly compromised, not so much by all the comorbidities of hypertension, heart disease, stroke, diabetes, metabolic syndrome, obesity, not by that, but merely by the severe state of fear and panic. And I've seen it in young people in particular who land up in high care units where they are in such a panic mode that their cytokine, the inflammatory markers in the blood, were at very high levels. Cytokine is an inflammatory chemical which at the right dose helps heal any infection or invasion or inflammation. But when there's a storm, a tsunami, a flood of these inflammatory chemicals, mainly cytokine, it's going to cause a compromise in the multi-system effect on the human form. Okay, so that's in a nutshell what is happening outside. And this is obviously causing lots of panic, and it's unnecessarily, we are not dealing with in a smart way. We thought we had come a long way, developed country, developed technology, industries developed. But if we examine our health prior to COVID, generally, that's where the compromise started. A good sign of how our individual health has been compromised is to look at what's happened in nature. So why did COVID virus come about? Is it a random event? Is it a conspiracy theory of this or that nation developing it and causing problems for the rest of the nation? No. You know, we look at disasters as a natural disaster, a tsunami, an earthquake, a hurricane, a tornado, COVID virus. We say to us, oh, wow, it's a natural phenomenon. Of course it's natural, but the process that leads up to these epidemics and pandemics and destruction is completely unnatural. Man's inhumanity to man, man's inhumanity to the planet, to the wildlife, to the air, to the land, to the waters, and hence the seasonal disruption is entirely due to mankind, man's interference. So it creates a macrocosmic inflammation of the planet. And nature, in all her wisdom and creative intelligence, has to correct. And that process of correction is not natural to nature. Nature has to do so much out of her pristine beauty and grace to correct the planet. And we find ourselves at the end receiving this reset of nature, and that is why we have to respect what is happening. We respect COVID. It is not a diabolical virus. It is not something to fear. And that's where it starts. Healing has to start with the human form. If we need to reduce the inflammation, the planetary inflammation, we need to reduce our own inflamed body-mind. Okay, body-mind is one. Mind-body has never been separated in essence. In reality, mind-body is one. Our thoughts are determining the flesh all the time, every second. Hence the whole science of psycho, neuro, immunoendocrinology. Our thoughts influence our immune cells, influence our brain cells, and influence the entire endocrine hormonal system, which is our physical body. That is the science that explains what is happening and what is creating a lot of fear in those who are left behind. Families are grieving. We fear, and the greatest fear, the greatest poison in Vedic science is the fear of death. And it has affected everybody, all ages. The fear of death is the greatest fear that's not spoken about, that's kept in our internal dialogue, that takes us away from who we are. It creates what writers are calling a soul sickness, because we are not addressing what is happening with us, and we are distracted by the data, by the information, by the knowledge that comes with that, which is often not a true interpretation, but we are forgetting what is the expansion of this knowledge, and that is sort of the inner wisdom that needs to prevail to maintain a resilient immune system. It is not having an overactive immune system. An underactive immune system are both weak immune systems. It's about a balanced, but more than that, a resilient immune system. And Ayurveda, or the integrative approach, the health science, the Vedic health science, and the science of Ayurveda is best suited to deal with this pandemic and our individual health. But as we sit here, we are practicing Ayurveda. If we are aware of our perceptual experience, our sensations, our ideas and images and imaginations, and we are aware of our feelings and thoughts, we are practicing Ayurveda. Ayurveda, the Vedic health science, is about being aware of who you are, know yourself, know who you truly are in terms of your lower self, know that the real nature of your lower self is your higher self, and know what contains everything in the universe is pure, silent, blissful, pristine consciousness, which contains everything that we can perceive through the senses, and it creates and conceives and governs everything that we are able to experience. If we can tap into that aspect of ourselves, our individual self is nothing different to the universal self. And that's where true healing, real holiness of ourselves, real sacredness of who we are starts surfacing. It is a time for us to engage and seek that. And it's not that we seek outwardly, it is right here with us. And this is the great lesson of this pandemic. So I would say thank God for COVID, because it awakens us to start taking care of ourselves, and at the same time we take care of those that are around us, including our environment, which is nothing else but our extended body. So there's a two parallel freeway of care during COVID, during pandemic. It's the individual self-care, and it's the self-care, it's the care of our communities, of groups, whether it's a family, whether it's a corporation, whether it's a community. We start paying more attention to that. And that automatically translates to a resilient immune system, a good quality, deep, restful sleep, an energetic body, a calm and alert mind, a silent mind, a compassionate, empathetic, caring heart, and ultimately lightness of being. We feel light because the soul sickness is what could happen very quickly. Weariness of the body, dread in the heart, and complete frozen panic in the mind. How do we go about preventing that and treating that is in the realm of Ayurveda. So if I can just stop there, if there are any questions, and then we can go into some practical aspects of healing from an Ayurvedic integrative health point of view. We have to ask the questions. What is the meaning of all that is happening? What is the purpose of this pandemic? Why? What is the purpose of ourselves? What is the reason that you are on this planet? Ask yourselves, how can we help? Ask yourself, what are we? Not just who are we, what is this nature of this body? What is the nature of the environment? What is the essential nature of of the material universe? If we ask those questions, we get great meaning and we find a sense of purpose in everything that is happening. Okay. Are there any questions thus far? It'd be nice if there's some participation. Okay. So, as you know, in Ayurveda, we all have a unique constitutional type, a mind-body type, and there's no one regimen for everybody. So we're looking at how do we create a resilient immune system. Okay, there's a question before I carry on. If you can just read out the question, Swami. Okay, let me.
Yeah, no, I can do that, no problem. So the question is, Dr. Vassen, can you say a bit more of the pandemic being an expression of the feminine energy? Did I understand you correctly?
Okay. In ancient wisdom, everything that we can perceive through the senses, what we hear, touch, see, taste, smell, is a manifestation of the feminine divine, also known as Shakti. It's the feminine divine that has a systematic unfolding from creator to creation and the process of creation. It's the feminine principle which gives rise to the organic and inorganic universe. It's the feminine principle that conceives and governs our mental functioning, our emotional functioning, our memory, our sense of self, of separate self, the ego mind, the discerning mind. It is the feminine principle which determines the state of our physiology through the assistance of the 5 great elements of nature: space, air, fire, water, earth. It is the feminine principle that systematically organizes through combination and permutation of the 5 elements to create the entities or the attributes of nature, the sustaining attribute, the reactive attribute, and the grounding attribute, or the attributes of the human form, the wind attribute, which we often call vata, the fire attribute, to put it very simply, and the water attribute. And these are as a result of combination of the 5 elements, which comes from the manifestation of pure feminine divine. The poor, pristine COVID virus, a beautiful looking virus according to the research, and a beautiful virus that is looking, I tell my patients, invite the virus. It's looking for a home just for a little while, to squat on your body, maintain a synergistic relationship with the virus, befriend the virus, do not fear the virus, and the virus goes. There might be great wisdom in that, but I'm not in a position to know that. Maybe one day somebody will tell us what is the meaning of the virus coming through. Okay. I hope that was answered. Okay. So,
Dr. Vassen, sorry, I have made you co-host. Sorry, I forgot to do that earlier on. So you can get into the chats. There is also another question there for you.
It's just my cell phone is on landscape, so I have to go like that to read
no
it.
problem. Would you like me to read out the other question, or do you want to?
Okay, sure.
Hello, Dr. Vassen. Thank you so much for this session. I have 2 questions. One, if someone realizes that perhaps their immune system is not so strong, perhaps due to stress or other factors, is it too late now to try and remedy this while COVID is already upon us, or is it too late? And number 2, how important is diet in building a strong immune system? That's probably all you're going to go into now anyway.
So it's a great question, great timing for the question. As long as we are breathing, as long as we are aware, we are capable of completely transforming our physiology, including our immune system. Okay? So as we sit here, the immune system, the immune cells are doing so much. We are dealing with a host of bacteria, viruses and fungi, parasites, including pollution, the pesticides or the pollutants that we're taking through food, through breath, through water, contaminants. So the body is dealing with a whole host of things, including cells that are cancer cells that we are busy flushing out, including maintaining a circadian rhythm so that we feel balance at different times of the day, including being in sync with the lunar cycle, as well as including being spontaneously maintaining our balance with the seasonal changes. All this is happening. We can enjoy music, we can do art, we can read a great intellectual piece, we can read poetry, and we can laugh, we can be inspired, we can be mesmerized, enthused right now because we are breathing and we are completely aware. And what determines that? A body, mind that is self-regulating. As is nature out there, is self-regulating for time immemorial. The human form is completely self-regulating. In other words, it maintains homeostasis. If we just nudge it a little bit into place, and the most important, the most powerful way to keep the body in balance is to recognize and pay attention to the seasons and to the times of the day, the circadian rhythm and the seasonal rhythm. In Ayurveda, daily routine and seasonal routine are supreme. You can take all the sophisticated herbs on the planet, you can do the greatest forms of meditation, but if you're not in daily routine and in seasonal routine and respecting nature for those gifts of routine, we're not going to get very far. So how blessed we are that the pandemic has pushed us into our homes. Not to fear, not to panic, but to realize that this is a time to implement a daily routine. If we can implement it, stick to it, with the guidelines of Ayurvedic principles, which I feel is the supreme health system on the planet. It is supreme because it is the origin of modern medicine, of allopathic medicine, of homeopathic principles, of Chinese traditional principles. It is the parent system. And it's not just meant for certain people in the East. It's meant for the whole of mankind. The ancient rishis knew that the entire planet would be needing this knowledge of the ancient Vedic science, health science. So just by implementing a few rituals in daily routine, we are able to maintain and turn around a weakened immune system. Where does it start? It starts with our thoughts. Okay? So what's happening now? We're in a fear of panic. Why are we panicking? Because we fear. Why do we fear? Because we are given information of what has happened out there to people who have contracted COVID. Okay? We don't realize that the people who have succumbed to COVID are people's immune systems that have really been compromised. And not so much because of their comorbidities of heart disease, diabetes, depression, obesity, etc., but because of the fear of death. So what do we do? How do we alleviate? Where do we go with this mind that is so busy, that is so fearful, that is going through great pain and suffering? The pain of, let not your pain be suffering. Remember the pain. The pain of 2020 was seeing people die, seeing your loved ones die, or yourself going through a difficult time with COVID. Let not the memory of that overshadow who you really are. So we fear that it could happen to us again. We fear that we are angry, we are inflamed because our lives, our comfortable lives have been disrupted. We have lost what we used to enjoy before, and so we are grieving that loss. So there's grief, there's anger, there's hostility, there's cynicism about what the government is doing, about the vaccines, about certain people on the planet, conspiracy theories. So we're becoming a cynical collective, a sarcastic collective. We are passing judgment, harsh judgment on all around us. We don't trust anymore. We're feeling unsafe, we're feeling insecure. And all these toxic thoughts are gathering together and causing a flush of cortisol, adrenaline, noradrenaline. It's disrupted our sleep patterns. We are not experiencing deep sleep anymore. Deep sleep is when the physical body heals. The dream sleep is when we are flushing out emotional toxins. but very few of us are experiencing deep, restful sleep, where the physical body heals and physical toxins are flushed out from our nervous system, our circulation, our gut. Okay, we are experience inflammation and acute on chronic episodes. So remember, we came into this pandemic already compromised. Most of us have chronic inflammation. Most of us have degeneration of the body, whether it's arthritis or whether it's comorbidities, but we're not experiencing symptoms because it's chronic low grade. And with that, most of us are experiencing chronic anxiety prior to the pandemic. And most of us are experiencing episodes of depression, etc., etc. So we were already depleted before the COVID started. And the pandemic has exacerbated and highlighted and brought to the surface what the state of our health really is, the mind-body health. So take cognizance of it and quickly get back into balance. It takes 2 to 3 weeks to get back into balance. It takes a few days to feel energized. It takes a week to get your digestive fire, your digestion balanced and strong again. And it's all about that. So we are experiencing a flood of chemicals. What do we do? So there's a sympathetic nervous system overdrive. Because of this reactive response, because of the stress response, because of our attention being outward on media and data, we are generating a sympathetic overdrive. So we need to balance that sympathetic overdrive with the parasympathetic nervous system. Both these systems are part of the autonomic nervous system. And it's the parasympathetic nervous system which, when strengthened or toned, it can generate all the great chemicals that are nature supporting, that are life supporting. The sympathetic chemicals are nature destroying and life destroying. So if we tone up and stimulate our what we call the vagus nerve, which is the darling nerve of the parasympathetic nervous system, we will have won the game. And how do we stimulate the vagus nerve? Okay, it's about the daily routine. So in a typical Ayurvedic routine, or daily routine, we would try and get up, it starts with early bedtime. And of course, we will talk about how we can ritualize sleep to enhance our deep sleep. And then awake naturally, preferably not with an alarm. You awake in the morning, and preferably most people should be needing about 7 to 8 to 9 hours of sleep, depending on your body type, your mind-body type. And you get up in the morning, you splash your face with cold water, and that activates the vagus nerve. A beautiful way to do it. We rinse our mouths with cold water, which further activates the vagus nerve. We brush our teeth, we scrape our tongue, we evacuate bowel bladder, we sip a glass of hot water. Now we are going into autumn, and we have to prepare now for the autumn-winter months, so that we don't succumb and struggle with COVID or any flu, influenza or colds during the winter months. So sipping hot water frequently, maybe too hot now, but certainly in the morning and last thing at night, sipping some hot water slowly, as hot as you can, is a great way of warming up the digestive tract, sloughing away toxicity, sticky toxicity that lines the digestive tract, and strengthening digestive fire and flushing out toxicity, evacuating it in the morning and throughout the day. So sipping hot water, and then again engaging. A oil bath is a very good idea. Self-massage with an oil, which has great benefits of milking these chemicals of melatonin, serotonin, dopamine, endorphins and opiates which are present in the lymph fluid. And once we massage it towards the heart, we enjoy the benefits of those immune modulating chemicals. Similarly, practicing yoga asana squeezes the muscles, sends these chemicals into the blood system, and we enjoy that the benefit of those chemicals. Most asanas have the effect on the vagus nerve. The sun salutation, Surya Namaskar, is the darling. If we can do about 7 to 12 cycles of sun salutation, morning and evening, that is enough. But there are particular asanas that are very good for chest and lung health and improving the vagal tone. And those are all the postures which stretch the chest in front and the abdomen in front, as well as the neck and the front of the face. So the cobra posture, the cow and cat together are great vagal nerve stimulators. The bow posture, the bridge posture, the camel posture, the locust posture, all super asanas for improving vagal tone, hence toning the parasympathetic nervous system, hence eliciting the relaxation response automatically. Okay. And of course, the day goes with nutrition. So we need to move the body, we need to still the mind. After your asanas, we can engage in breathing exercises. And there are a whole host of breathing exercises. But measured breathing, 3 to 5 seconds in breath, pausing a bit, 3 to 5 seconds out breath. I tell all my patients who are COVID positive, every half an hour, do that for 60 seconds. So you'll reach about 5 to 6 breaths per minute, and do it every half an hour or hour just for 60 seconds. And patients were quite willing to do that. And it elicited a beautiful relaxation response, which made their immune systems resilient. So pranayama is a great prelude to quietening the mind. Why do we have to meditate? Meditation, dhyan, is to reach the still mind, and it's in the stillness of our mind which allows us to immensely stimulate and ground the immune system. Okay, so the reason why people panic is because they are too caught up in their own thought processes. What the secret is to get beyond these thought processes, to get into the stillness of who you are, and the rest is taken care of. So regular diving into silence is always a great, and I'm sure Swami Vidyananda, you're going to be speaking at length about that in your talk. Of course, we're looking at food. What do we say about food? Let food be your medicine. We don't have to run to the shelves at Clicks or Discount and fill up our baskets with all these vitamins. Let food be the medicine. Let it pay more attention to food. Allow all your senses to be enlivened by the whole act of preparation and eating. Sit down and eat. Remember that food is medicine. Chant the food prayer. That's when food becomes miraculously healing. Look at foods for the season. Make sure that you're including unctuous foods. There's no more are we talking about fat-free, oil-free foods. We need certain cold-pressed oils to make food easily assimilated and easily metabolized and digested. Wholesome foods. We can talk about an anti-inflammatory food program. I mean, let's just to list some anti-inflammatory foods. Basically, cruciferous vegetables, the broccolis, the cauliflowers, spinach, kale. We're looking at blueberries is another anti-inflammatory food. We're looking at boswellia, a great herb, frankincense, which is probably the #1 anti-inflammatory herb. We're looking at turmeric, we're looking at fresh ginger, we're looking at a good quality cinnamon, cardamom, a whole host of spices. We can have it in chai tea, we can use turmeric and black pepper in our food, we can use turmeric and black pepper in our golden milk with a bit of ghee or coconut oil as a nice medium for absorption. So golden milk in the evening, turmeric, black pepper, and a whole host of Eastern and Western herbs in your cooking, and starting the day and having a normal tea or even a herbal tea with your cardamom, your ginger, your cinnamon, your black pepper. And this is part of a well-known formulation called Sitopaladi. 90% of the formulation of that, which looks after our respiratory tract, which is from the nose right down to the bottom of the lungs. We can use the herbs of spices of cardamom, cinnamon, ginger, black pepper to enhance and protect our respiratory system. Important for protecting against viruses is Nasyam, introducing oils, massaging oils into the inner cavities of your nostrils. You may do it 3 times a day, first thing in the morning, last thing at night, preferably before a meal or an hour or 2 after a meal and before a steam exposure. So you may use sesame oil or some ghee or some coconut oil. It would be great to lubricate the mucosal membranes and the passages of the sinuses and the nasal cavities and the throat. And it brings out excess mucus from the stomach. So it's a great measure to implement is Nasyam, introducing these oils into the nasal cavities. What else is there? Of course, a repeat of your yoga asana and breathing exercises and your meditative practice in the late afternoon, evening is always a good idea. And maintaining lightness of heart. Laugh, 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 laugh. Watch a funny video. Laugh at yourselves. Laugh and shake your body and laugh. Love, fall in love, love yourself. Love who you are, love your unique talents, love your dharma, your purpose in life. Love exactly who you are with all the pluses and minuses. Love a pet, love a fellow human being, love a child, loving kindness, empathetic joy. Be happy for those who are experiencing success and joy. Be happy for those who are happy. And act on that by being compassionate to alleviate another person's suffering. Joy, what is your joy? Ask yourself what gives you joy. It could be a cup of coffee, it could be a chocolate, it could be a beautiful view, it could be a blissful baby smiling, it could be your pet. What gives you joy? And of course, lastly, what are you grateful for? So all these sublime states of the mind are there to make an immune system that is resilient, that will look after you, that you never have to worry about. Okay? And of course, we can talk about the herbs in Ayurveda which are immune modulating. Of course, number 1 is ashwagandha, rejuvenative nervine tonic, anti-infective to all invasions of bacteria and virus and fungi, and an antioxidant adaptogen. Ashwagandha is a must, and it induces good quality sleep. We're looking at amla. Amla is 1,000 times a good quality amla or amlaki or Indian gooseberry is 1,000 times more effective than vitamin C on the shelves. So in amla in the form of Chyawanprash, which is a great formulation going back about 2,000 years, is always a great formulation of which the main ingredient is amla. We're looking at guduchi is my favorite. Tinospora cordifolia, guduchi. Great, probably the number 1 for me, immune strengthening, immune modulating herb in Ayurveda, anti-inflammatory, stabilizes, cools down the digestive tract, cools down, it's cooling to the body, but particularly the digestive tract. So those are a few herbs to mention, but most importantly is to see to one's digestive tract. How are we doing for time, Swami?
For me personally, it can go on for quite some time. It's not, we still got another 15 minutes.
Sure.
So, but if, from my perspective, if we go a little bit over time, it's also okay. People,
Sure.
of course, are free to stay or leave, you know, as they're okay.
So why do we have to look after our digestive fire, also known as digestive Agni? Remember that when we are born, okay, we'll come back to that. The digestive tract is innervated by the vagus nerve in all its glory and beauty. And for me, the digestive tract is the first brain. It's the first brain where all neurochemicals are able to be tapped into because of its innervation of the vagus nerve. Okay, there's a question. The herb that's I mentioned about has a cooling effect is Guduchi, G-U-D-U-C-H-I, also known as Tinospora cordifolia, Tinospora cordifolia. So in the digestive tract, there are about 20 million to 200 million bacterial genes. These bacteria are commensals that we cannot do without. Depending on where we live, if we're more urbanized, we have fewer bacterial colonies. But if you're more in outdoors, rural, eating a more nature-supporting diet and a wholesome diet, we increase that bacterial microbiome almost tenfold. And compared to the human genes we have about 23,000 human genes and about 20 to 20 million bacterial genes. So we need to ask ourselves, who are we really? And these bacterial genes are the source of every neurochemical that we need to maintain a joyful life, an energetic body, a resilient immune system, a calm and alert mind, a silent mind, and a compassionate and loving heart. Because the traffic of information is not brain-gut, it is gut-brain more than 95%. The reason why we are feeling happy or sad, it is because of the microbiome of the gut. Any disruption of that, which due to a routine that is not healthy, due to thoughts, toxic thoughts and emotions, due to eating foods that are not helpful and probiotic in nature, we're going to disrupt that microbiome and we're going to feel ill. And we know in Ayurveda that most diseases begin in the gut, in the large intestine. Most diseases of wind, of degeneration, of drying, of aging, premature aging, of blockages, of stagnation is due to have their origin in the gut. To look after the microbiome is the number one program to implement. And through pranayama, yoga, and a pristine daily routine of not over inundating yourself, short periods of practices, 10, 15 minutes of practice, 2 to 3 times a day, a regular meal time, early bedtime, not a late bedtime, minimizing our technology, where we can use technology for our benefit, minimizing extreme behavior patterns, introspective, turning your awareness inward and being aware of being aware is what needs to be done. Tapping into your silent core being. Maintaining a relationship with nature. Look at nature, smell nature, taste nature, touch nature, listen to nature. Ground your mind, body by getting in communion with nature. Because eating is the most intimate process we have with nature. We take in nature through food to determine the state of our thoughts. The subtle part of food determines our state of mind. The subtle part of water becomes pranic energy, life force. Okay? The intermediate part of water becomes blood, fluid. The intermediate part of food becomes tissue. And the gross part of food and water becomes waste. So the subtle part of food and water determines our life force and state of mind. Such is the greatness and grandness of food. And this comes with being at home and taking your thoughts away from yourself. Put your thoughts in the place of others who are really suffering. And that's a sure way of alleviating our anxiety and fear. We're ruminating too much about ourselves, and that's what creates more and more fear and panic. Okay. Are there any questions thus far?
Yeah, Dr. Vassen, there are a few questions that came in through the chat.
Okay. Let's deal with them.
Okay, it's quite a number. Okay, here. I love to think of immunity as not only related to our bodies, but also immunity of the mind and heart. How important is the practice of meditation for our immunity? I think you touched on that, but anyway.
Okay, the mind in particular has its own innate digestive process. We take in an experience through our senses, with a perception, sensations. We create images and imaginations, and it determines our feelings and thoughts. If we can digest an experience sublimely and supremely with wisdom and awareness, we will have taken everything good about that experience and imbibed it in our body-mind, which is in effect maintaining a resilient immune system. The heart we never have to worry about. If the mind is light, if the mind is open, if the mind has clarity of thought, if the mind is not dwelling in the past and obsessing about the future, if the mind is actively engaging in present moment awareness, in experiencing the timeless of our silent self, we don't have to worry about the heart. When the mind is still, the intellect becomes highly polished. And when the intellect is developed, our discerning capability, and that's when the intellect is developed, the intellect and the heart becomes one. The heart will be inspired, the heart will be joyful, the heart will be in harmony with everything that the mind experiences, and the heart will experience immense peace. We cannot think of peace of the mind. It doesn't make sense. The mind is never peaceful, but we can have peace of heart. So accept the mind that it's busy, but say, use the busy mind. Like the stepping stones in a rushing river. Step on the stones, step on the mind, step on the stones of the mind, and get yourself to the other side of the busy mind, which is the higher mind. Use your mind. Don't discard of the mind. The mind has its own use and purpose. Use it correctly, understand it, know the different functionalities of the mind, so that you can experience the inner peace and joy. And it's attainable. I mean, the ancients would say, be still and know that you are God. Or the ancients would say, the kingdom of the universe is within, in the stillness of what is inside of us. And in Vedic science, would say that Ananda or bliss is at the heart of creation, at the heart of the universe, in the form of truth. Tagore says, truth is not love is not an emotion. It is the force of nature that is at the heart of creation, the stillness of creation. Before creation became creation, there was non-creation, there was pure energy. And we are right there with it. We just need to allow the mind to be still. In fact, if I ask all of you to close your eyes right now, for the first few seconds, you'll be in pure silence. Try that. Close your eyes and just be quiet. Did you not experience pure silence? And then, of course, the rush of thoughts come. So a technique of meditation is just to maintain being anchored in the stillness. Stillness is there. We don't have to look for it. We don't have to look for our core consciousness. It is right here. So we just have to stay there and use a methodology to stay there. And then if the mind goes away, it's fine. Just come back to it. No struggle. Be contemplative about everything the senses perceive while you're meditating, and enjoy the stillness. It is all there for us for the taking. And that is the way we try and attain a resilient, flexible, immune energy of the mind and heart. The next question.
Yes, thank you. Dr. Vassen, is a virus an actual physical particle that can be prevented from transmitting itself by disinfecting a surface?
Yes, it's an RNA entity, but yes, absolutely, through sanitization, through mask wearing, through distancing, one is able to maintain the spread. The virus itself is not the problem, it's the spread of it to vulnerable people. And the more people become infected, the more the fear increases. Okay, the fear has only increased to alarming levels because of the numbers of people contracting virus and the rapid rate at how quickly large numbers have contracted the virus, not because of the virus itself. If 100 years ago the COVID-19 came about, the mortality rate would have probably been about 50–60% of the world population. Now in the modern age, we have data, we have information, we have knowledge, we have social media, we have the World Wide Web, we have researchers, we have scientists who are able to help us. And the mortality rate is significant, but nothing to be alarmed about if you take those necessary physical precautions, which is necessary. But more importantly, let's develop the resilience of the mind, the psyche, and the emotions. And how do we maintain emotional balance? What is a sure way of maintaining emotional balance? We have to listen. If we listen deeply, as Thich Nhat Hanh says, we alleviate the suffering of the one that we are listening to. If we listen without speaking, deep care, deep listening is the first step. If we can care deeply for and genuinely for another, and stop worrying about yourselves, you know, they say in Vedic science, if you want something, you give it first. So give somebody attention, compassion, alleviate the suffering of another, and that is deep caring, based on empathy, where you feel what another person is feeling. Accept what is. Accept what is now, because now is the only reality. Accept that there is a pandemic, and you will ride the wave of it. You know, they say stress is, everything is caused by stress, but you cannot say a pandemic is a stress. Some people thrive with the pandemic, and some people just merely survive with the pandemic. It's how a surfer rides the wave. A surfer who's inexperienced will completely be washed away by a huge wave. Another surfer with the same wave will be able to create a beautiful process of surfing the wave. Don't blame the wave, blame the surfer. Don't blame COVID. Don't blame the pandemic. Blame our awareness, which determines the resilience of your mind body. Blame our attitudes, our jumping to conclusions, our grievances, our judgments, our competitiveness, our separatist ideologies, our divisive energies. Blame that, because that is what's creating an inflamed society, which creates inflamed nations and inflamed continents and inflamed planets. That is the root. We are the root of the source of what happens, whether it's a challenge or whether it's a time of pain or whether it's a time of pleasure. Let's take responsibility. Let's be responsive to what is happening and not run away from who we are. We cannot run away from our soul. We have to get in touch with soul energy. But we are all running away because of fear and panic. That needs to stop. If we do that collectively, we will create magnificent waves of healing and re-establish the sacredness of the planet and the sacredness of intention of action. Next question.
Yes, next question. Thank you, Doctor. Yes, Dr. Vassen. How does the collective energy, which is grief, sadness, cynicism, affect us on an individual level? And then how can we protect ourselves from that?
Okay, so we have a choice. We can either entertain something or not entertain something. So remember that I started off with this great Upanishadic expression, let us not entertain negativity. We have a choice whether to say next. So the moment we see something that is negatively imbued with negative emotion and attitude, we don't have to entertain that. We don't have to be embroiled in that. We don't have to be part of that. Shift your attention to the sublime states of the mind. That's all it needs. And the more you shift to those pristine states of the mind, which are nature supporting, we can easily get in touch with who we are, which is our silent core being. And that's where real healing is elicited. So we don't have to, we must be quite astute and discerning about what is real and what is not real, what is authentic, what is not authentic, what is emotionalism, what is not, what is hysteria, what is not hysteria. We don't have to get caught up in that. We look around us, government heads are all inflamed. If you look at the extreme form of nationalism happening in the West, the extreme form of the epidemics of global poverty, pandemic of poverty, the pandemic of eco-disruption, the pandemic of corruption, of war, terrorism. it is a reflection of us, of how we are functioning with ourselves. And the world out there is a mirror of who we are. But we can choose to look in another mirror, because there's always a balance of diabolical and divine energies and forces and happenings on the planet. There's always a pristine balance. But because we're bombarded with media that is negative, we choose that. But we don't have to do that. Make a choice.
Thank you. So next question. Dear Dr. Vassen, thank you. What is the ideal time frame in the process of evacuation elimination, please?
It all, are you talking about in the human physiology? I think that's.
I presume so. Huh?
So it all depends on your constitution. It all depends on your daily routine, your daily regimen. It all depends what you eat. So I mentioned that certain cruciferous vegetables, for example, are anti-inflammatory, but it's all about the preparation, the use of oils, the use of herbs and spices. And remember, salt is a very important spice, eh? Probably one of the most important spices, a good quality salt. But it's all about the preparation. It's all about the season that we are eating these foods, the climate, the time of day, and it's all about your constitution. So if you have a particular constitution where you are not going to be able to digest a lot of raw food, take cognizance of that. Know yourself, know your constitution. In Ayurveda, if you want to know Ayurveda theory and become Ayurvedic literate, know the principles of tridosha, the three doshas, Vata, Pitta, Kapha. If you familiarize yourself with the language of the doshas, you will be beautifully Ayurvedic literate. And doshas mean disharmony or imbalance. And we try to attain the pure form of the doshas. The pure form of Vata dosha is prana. The pure source of Pitta dosha is tejas, digestion, subtle and gross. The pure form of Kapha dosha is ojas, which determines immunity and structure and strength. And these are subtle substances on the border of material and non-material that are there in the beginning when we are pristine human beings as a baby. And as we get on in life, we start developing imbalances of these three pristine substances of prana, tejas, ojas, and we develop vata, pitta, kapha imbalance. And we just need to alleviate excesses of these doshas and at the same time maintain a digestive health, maintain a good daily routine, an important sleep routine is of paramount importance, and lightness of being. As I mentioned, love, be kind. Yeah, so it depends on the individual and their constitutional type and their daily routine that determines evacuation, the speed of metabolism, digestion, assimilation, absorption, and eventual elimination. Any other questions?
Dr. Vassen, thank you. Those were all the questions. Okay. So I think that this is a good time to say thank you to you. It's been really, really absolutely fantastic presentation. And there's so much that you shared. I have taken the liberty of recording the talk, so we will then, with your permission, upload it onto YouTube, and then we can listen to it again. I know I was starting to make notes, and I thought, no, I'll just wait, rather listen nicely, and then I can look at it again, and so we can get more of the detailed information. But yes, you've been very kind and very enthusiastic and inspiring in your presentation of this COVID-19, and very, very useful guidelines to this. So we are very grateful to you, Dr. Vassen. And I know from our discussion from 2 months ago that all your patients have benefited from being with you. That's why I felt it was important that we share this knowledge so that everyone is empowered, you know, to remain healthy and to be free of fear. I think that is the key. I'm very happy you've mentioned this and emphasized this point. We must just get rid of this fear. That is the key to. So God bless you.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining in. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for everybody also for being part. God bless you all. Hari Om Tat Sat.
Namaste.